Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about an article that ICV2 recently launched. This column was done by Scott Thorne, and it was called Rolling for Initiative, a case for possible sale of Wizards of the Coast being on the horizon. I agree with what Scott Thorne is saying, and he presents pieces of evidence that say that he thinks Hasbro is going to sell Wizards of the Coast soon. Right now, we care about Dungeons and Dragons. That's the part we care about, right? I think he's correct. You should check it out for yourself. In the article, he says something I want to talk about. He said that the weakest point of his positing that that Wizards of the Coast that Hasbro is positioning Wizards of the Coast to sell is that who would buy, right? And it's really fascinating because I think Scott Thorne's a very smart guy. I read his article. He's got good writing craft. If you look at the way he thought this through, but he missed some major things, right? Because and I get it. A lot of people when they here's the issue. A lot of people think Dungeons and Dragons is a game. It's not. Dungeons and Dragons is a vector, right? It is a vector for art, literature, and gaming. It really has no precedence. You know, you want to call it a game, but then in it says you can change the rules whenever you want. What game runs like that, right? Like it's more than a game, right? A lot of people think of Dungeons and Dragons as a game, and so they don't really understand it, right? They understand it's it's the whole thing where you're feeling the elephant's ear, and you're like, oh, this is a blanket, right? You know, or some nonsense like that. If you don't understand the full ramifications of what Dungeons and Dragons is, you're not going to get what's happening. And I think there's a big part that he's missing. So he's saying, who would buy Dungeons and Dragons? And in his article, he says, oh, here's the people who could buy Dungeons and Dragons: Paizo, Goodman Games, Troll Lord Games, Cobbled Press. Boy, I think he threw in, and I heard some other people. So that's what he lists in the and then also he talks about Asmodee. Actually, Asmodee was purchased in 2018, so they don't really function as a standing as a standing entity that could buy something, because honestly they were bigger than any of those companies. So, and he's like, oh, none of these people really have the money. Boy, are you right about that. Paizo 2 definitely doesn't have the money to buy Dungeons & Dragons. No, this is ridiculous, right? Paizo, they're on edition 2. That thing is like sinking like a lead balloon, right? Goodman Games, are you kidding me? Like, I'm not sure they could buy a Taco Bell, right? Same with Troll Lord Games and same with Cobbled Press, right? I think any one of these companies would be hard pressed to pull together 10 million, right? And so, and what do you really need to buy Dungeons and Dragons? I'm not going to give you that number right now. And the reason why is how much Dungeons and Dragons is worth is its own video. So I appreciate your patience. I'm going to tell you who can buy Dungeons and Dragons. Paizo, Goodman Games, Troll Lord Games, and Cobble Press. I think if they all combined together, they would struggle to get 100 million. And I'll tell you right now, you can't buy Dungeons and Dragons for 100 million bucks. No way, no possible way. It's worth way more than that, right? Okay, so who could buy Dungeons and Dragons? There's a real good answer to that, okay? And I'm kind of amazed that Scott Thorne, when thinking about this, didn't think about this. Who would want Dungeons and Dragons? Well, I'll tell you one thing. We have a new president who, in my opinion, I think he won. This isn't debatable. His name recognition really helped him win, right? Names are valuable, right? And Dungeons and Dragons names, people know it. People know Dungeons and Dragons. Even people who don't play Dungeons and Dragons know it, right? And one of the things is, one of the biggest forces in the world right now are video games. And every video game designer, if you talk to them for 10 minutes, you're going to hear the word Dungeons and Dragons. Leveling, systematized combat, focus on an individual character who's in the middle of adventure, focus on combat itself over social interaction. Virtually the entire video game industry stands on the foundation of Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is critically foundational to the video gaming world, right? So anyone who is interested in video games, anyone in the video game industry would be incredibly interested in Dungeons and Dragons, right? Even though it has a history in video games, and that's the biggest thing is if you understand Dungeons and Dragons, it's Dungeons and Dragons now is Marvel in the 80s. People don't really get the full value of Dungeons and Dragons because it's never had a hit movie. That's what unlocks all of this. But the video game industry, they understand content, right? So the video game industry, EA, Ubisoft, all the big ones. And those suckers, they can roll off and say, hey, I need a few billion from from literally a network of lenders, right? They got that juice. Right? They can do it, right? So large companies in the video game industry could be very interested in the Dungeons and Dragons game. Who's next? Hollywood, baby, right? I'm talking all of them. Paramount, and actually, so I'm drawing a blank on studios right now, but Paramount, Lionsgate, Universal, Disney. Yeah, but and okay, you know what? Let's take Disney out of it, right? Let's take Disney out of it for a second. Universal, right? Paramount, Lionsgate, and many, many, many other movie studios would have an interest in Dungeons and Dragons, because the reality is Dungeons and Dragons has the possibility of being done right. Right? There was a complete, Marvel had a lot of crap movies before it became the ultimate profit engine in the world for Hollywood. Dungeons and Dragons has the possibility of doing that next. Maybe Feige goes over and does the next does the D&D series. Who knows, right? Or maybe there's a Feige in the wings who can do it, right? It's huge. It's really important, right? So movie studios. Next is the streamers. They are all begging for content, and Dungeons and Dragons is a treasure trove of content, right? It's got a lot of lore, right? It's got a lot of name recognition, right? So that means Netflix, Disney Plus, right? HBO Max, all the major streamers. Oh, Amazon Prime, Amazon. These are some of the biggest companies in the world, and again, they could pull together billions, right? So that's who would buy: streamers, movie studios, and video game companies. Oh, and here's one last one: a tech Yahoo. Right now, I'm sorry, I know Yahoo is a site, but what do I mean by a tech Yahoo? Right? Actually, a tech cowgirl. Let's say it that way. Some big baller, tech cowgirl who went to Silicon Valley and made a few billion. There's a few of them. It's not a small number, right? And not only do many of them have cashed out with a couple, Candy Crush sold for like $2 billion, right? So all those tech people in Silicon Valley, how many of those code nerds you think didn't play D&D growing up, right? And now got a couple billion sitting in the bank. They're like, yeah, I want D&D, right? So I'll tell you right now, I'm not even going to give you my number yet, but I will tell you it's $1 billion plus. It starts with it's a question mark B billion, right? And so that means also the tech cowgirls, right? People who have made it big in tech and got a couple of billion sitting around, right? And there's a few of them. There's probably 20, 40, 50 people like that in America, right? I will say that, yeah. So that's who could buy. There's lots of people who could put a B in the sales bucket for Dungeons and Dragons. So when we ask the question of who would buy Dungeons and Dragons, it's streamers, it's movie studios, it's video game studios, and it's tech cowgirls. Tech bonanza makers, right? All of them, and they all can swing $1 billion plus, right? Dungeons and Dragons is worth a fortune. Right? But that's who would buy. That's my opinion. Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.